Hello again, Dynasty fans. This is the Dynasty Slant, powered by Pro Football Focus and brought to you by DraftKings. I am your usual host, Michael Moore. As usual, my co-host, Russell Clay. Say hello, Russell.
Yo, what's going on, guys?
So, Russ, finally, after all the theorizing and speculation, I think, from the offseason, we can finally, mercifully, talk about actual game action and who looks good and probably more importantly, who doesn't. So I guess real quick, Russ, what was the favorite game for you this weekend?
Oh boy, I don't know if I had a favorite game. I definitely had a least favorite game.
Yeah,
which
okay,
is,
that works too. Go for it.
The Chargers game,
Oh, no.
which was basically the funeral of Melvin Gordon.
Well, okay. Yeah, well, no, we'll get into that, Russ. You're getting ahead of us. But
sorry.
yeah, no. On this episode, we will cover Melvin Gordon along with other rookie running backs that made their debut. We will either determine if it is their, like Russell said, their funeral, or if it's their, birthday or whatever analogy you want to use there. But then after that, I think we will jump right into a 2-round Dynasty startup mock draft. And sort of give the listeners an idea of at least what you and I think is important drafting the early rounds of a startup. All right, so that sound good, Russ?
Sounds good, man.
All right, so let's get to week one. The theme this week, at least for this podcast, rookie running backs. As you said, Melvin Gordon apparently is a bust already, so why don't you take this one?
I had already handled this narrative before this actually happened, so we're prepared. If you listen to the first round of the rookie draft, Melvin Gordon is, if he is a bust, it's not because he went to Wisconsin. He's better than any Wisconsin back that's ever been there.
Even Ron Dane, Russ. Even Ron Dane, you're saying.
You know, when it comes,
that is a hot sports opinion.
No, I mean, I wouldn't, even as a big fan, I wouldn't deny he looked bad. I mean, he looked nervous and he couldn't make correct decisions. That was clear, and I wouldn't deny that. But I think the most important thing you have to take from preseason is that if you had a view before this, you can't simply just do a 180 after one bad preseason game, you know? Yeah. I think that there's things you can get optimistic about and excited about. Like we'll get to a few, but I don't think you can change it a little bit, but don't totally shift your views based on a few runs, you know?
Yeah, I think that's the big thing is one game is certainly not a trend, you know. It's just, and it's the very first game. Look, that's to be expected when you go from the Big Ten to the speed of the NFL, even if it is only preseason, you know. So, yeah, I think Gordon has a long leash. I don't think anyone should be moving him down any rookie draft boards yet. I think, for me anyway, he's safely in the top 3. And between him and Gurley and Gordon, or not Gordon, him and Cooper, I think they're pretty interchangeable. So, yeah, right. I think that's the big thing is do not freak out. You know, 6 carries for 11 yards. It's his first game. I mean, second, third game, we'll see if there's progress, and if there's not, maybe you can talk about some movement, but it's certainly not going to be dramatic. So, yeah, right. I think that's the takeaway here. So, but Russell, on the other side of the spectrum, let's apparently anoint Amir Abdullah as the next Barry Sanders, and I'll let you take that one too. So go ahead.
I love this run. I mean, if you didn't see the 45-yard run, there's a highlight tape pretty much everywhere that you can find of it. Ameer Abdullah basically had a crazy game for a preseason game for 7 or 8 touches. I mean, he definitely made the most of them. But he has immense potential in that offense. I mean, when you look at Reggie Bush and when you look at sort of Javid Best for a little while there's fantasy points to be had in that offense, and I think he can do it from year one. But, I mean, if you already liked him, then this is just sort of confirming things. And if you shouldn't be pushing him up to sort of elite levels already based on that one run. And if you didn't like him, this sort of gives you a peek into his abilities, but Yeah, I just think sort of stick with what you believed before. Be willing to change a little bit, but I mean, he's a good player, like no question about it, you know?
Yeah, and yeah, just like you said, I think you and I were both fairly high on him, even entering the game. He went sort of middle first round of our own rookie mock-up or rookie mock draft a couple weeks ago. So,
Hmm.
yeah, but just like you said, I mean, the run was great. It certainly, I think, confirmed what a lot of people liked about him, which, it's not just a matter of, hey, he was a physical freak at the combine. That came through in actual game action. So,
Right, right.
for me, I still think, look, if he reels off a couple like 99-yard runs and Melvin Gordon is averaging 2 yards a carry, okay, maybe he jumps Gordon in rookie drafts. But yeah, for me, all this does is firm up Abdullah's spot as the number 3 running back. Is that about right? Or has
Yeah.
he not quite gotten there for you yet?
No, he was my number 4 before that happened in this class, which, as I said, the top 6 in this class would be my number 1 in the 2013 class. So, I mean, I'm high on him. I'm just not gonna, pick him in the 3rd round of redraft league this year.
Sure. Yeah. No, and I think that's an excellent point. I mean, obviously, you and I have a dynasty take on a lot of things, but for
Right.
redraft, yeah, definitely hold back on taking Abdullah as your like first running back, or even
Yeah.
relying on him as your second. That would be risky. And look, unlike Gordon, who you can correct me if I'm wrong. There's little to no competition for first and second down carries in San Diego. Abdullah still has some people around him on the depth chart that he will have to sort of, I guess, outperform, let alone other rookies. You still got Theo Reddick, who, to his credit, had 35 yards on 8 carries, so it's certainly not bad. Obviously, Joik Bell still recovering from injury, so at the very least, I think Abdullah has made sure that he will be splitting carries with those two guys, but I don't
Yes.
think he's at the point where, hey, they're anointing him a 3-down bell cow running back yet, right?
Right.
Yeah. So, yeah. So no, I think we're good there. So a couple other guys, Russ, that you had mentioned that are sort of, at least before week 1, I would say, if not way off the radar, at least on the fringe, but are now firmly on the radar. And let's first look at Karlos Williams out of Buffalo, a guy who, let's face it, I don't think a lot of people expected him to finish very high on the depth chart to start the season. But, now there's talk of him finishing as the backup, the primary backup to LaShawn McCoy. Is that possible? Let's start there.
I think as long as Fred Jackson's there, he's going to have at least a role. But I mean, all the word out of camp is that he's been playing really well, and I think if McCoy were to go down for a significant amount of time, he'll have a good role there. I
think
mean,
so. And look, let's not forget a couple things. One, Rex Ryan will run LaShawn McCoy into the ground, so it's very possible on his like 450th carry, McCoy goes down with some kind of injury. But at the same time, he does, again, Rex likes to run the ball a lot and not necessarily to one person. I mean, remember, he was the coach of the Jets who used, I don't know, 3-4 different running backs at a time. There was never a guy that had 300 carries. So, yeah, I think it's definitely possible, even if McCoy doesn't get hurt, that Williams sees some action. I mean, the depth chart behind McCoy, admittedly, not very crowded, not very, I guess stuffed with athletes. You've got, as you said, Fred Jackson, who I think is going on his 40th birthday. You got, Anthony Dixon and Bryce Brown, who, again, it seems like they're always very hot preseason picks, but it never translates into regular season production. So with that said, that backup spot's pretty wide open, right?
well, that's the interesting thing when you look at a guy like Bryce Brown, and then him and Karlos Williams are sort of similar athletically. But what Bryce Brown could never do is climb the depth chart. He got that one opportunity, but that was because of injuries in Philadelphia. And I mean, Karlos Williams, basically the rap on him was super athlete, safety transferred, like not transferred, but converted from safety. Loves contact, but can he translate? Can he learn the position? And him moving up this quickly is a really good sign for me,
I think so. Look, it's Buffalo. It's not as if there's a whole lot of competition, quite honestly, at any of the skill positions that I think somebody has firmly entrenched themselves. Maybe Sammy Watkins and Charles Clay, but that's about it. So,
Right.
so last question on Karlos then. Where approximately would you put him in rookie drafts? End of first round, early second, or is that still too high?
Yeah, too high. I don't think you'd have to reach for him right now. I think you can still get him in the late third round of a rookie draft, which sort of like, I mean, Josh Robinson's going to be bumping up too, but you look at all these later round running backs, and even those guys are good values now. Matt Jones. So yeah, I think a lot of these rookies like are all moving up at the same time. So Karlos you'll be able to get him at a discount.
I think
So
so. Yeah, I
late
think.
third, early fourth of a rookie
Yeah,
draft.
I think that's about right. And look, it's very possible he moves up to maybe what? What's his ceiling at the moment? Late second, early third?
Yeah, somewhere around there. Yeah.
Yeah, I would probably agree with that because look, he's not going to be a starter. That's just not going to happen. So, but yeah, he could sub in at a moment's notice. So,
hmm
and you mentioned Matt Jones. Let's talk about him a little bit because he also had a pretty impressive debut. Had a very nice run there that I remember. So, he had a little more hype, I think, going into the preseason, only because there were a lot of questions if Alfred Morris was going to be still the primary running back there in Washington. And hey, who knows with that team who's going to be starting at any given time at any position. But with that said, it's pretty obvious Morris is the starter. But, is Matt Jones the guy to own there behind Alfred?
Oh, he's definitely the guy. Yeah. And I mean, they just, I believe Silas Red was one of their backups, and they waived him because he got hurt. Chris Thompson's sort of been around, but Matt Jones looks good. He looks really good. So
He looks
he's
he,
starting
yeah.
to confirm that third round pick for them, you know?
Yeah, he's big and he's strong. And yeah, I mean, I know early in the preseason, his general manager, Scott McLaughlin, compared him to a Marshawn Lynch type, which at the time I think you sort of scoff at because you're thinking, well, great, why didn't you take him in the first? But, as he is getting more playing time and as he showed, at least in week one of preseason, it may not be, eventually too far off for him, and look, I definitely think they're going to give him carries from the get-go. I think they want to see what they got pretty early, which is not to say I think Alfred Morris could not be a decent running back in, say, redraft leagues this year. Dynasty may be a different story, but yeah, I think Matt Jones, I think there's a lot of potential there. So what are you thinking as far as rookie drafts for him? Late second?
He's creeping up there now. Yeah, sort of where you picked him last week. Right around that area now. I mean, he might start to rise even a little more. And quickly, something that gets lost on some dynasty owners a little bit, like just because Alfred Morris is the lead back, like the coaches are going to want to give him a rest. So
Right.
if they have a player of good caliber behind him, why not? Like they're going to look at it. Why not? Like let Alfred Morris take a series off or a few per game, and then it'll make him more effective. So you got to look at it the way the coaches would look at it sometimes, you know.
Yeah, no, I completely agree with that. I mean, there's very few, as we've seen, running backs that can carry that kind of load and do it effectively. I mean, it just doesn't happen anymore. And yeah, I think you're right. And look, I think it's pretty obvious the Redskins were more successful in recent years when they were running the ball. And
Right. Right.
I don't know that Robert Griffin can do it quite as effectively as he used to, but I think Alfred Morris could if he had, the right combination of rest and somebody spelling him. And look, to get a guy like Matt Jones as a backup, I mean, gives you sort of that thunder and lightning type quality where Matt Jones is just going to be the bruiser and the guy you hand it off to on 3rd and 1 and 3rd and short, and he's just gonna bulldoze guys over, which I think could be.
Yes, he is.
At the very least, he could be your goal line back towards the end of the season. So, yeah, I think it's a very interesting player, and one of those, like we mentioned last week on the rookie mock, one of those lottery tickets that where you're drafting him late second, third round, there's really a lot of value there because it could pay off. It could pay off big time in the upcoming years.
Right, and you're not paying that much, so yeah.
Right. Again, it's all about best player available, and right now, Matt Jones, like you said, he's creeping up there, and who knows where he will end up by the time the season starts. So. Well, good, Russ. That covered, I think, what we wanted to get to as far as rookie running backs for this week. And obviously, there's 3 more weeks of preseason, so still a lot of stuff to be sorted out and to shake out. But for all that coverage, just as a side note, for all of our listeners that aren't currently subscribed to PFF Fantasy Gold, go there now, get the best fantasy football advice on the web for just $29.99. Or less than $2 a week for the entire season. You can get industry-leading projections, award-winning rankings, unique tools, weekly content for redraft, IDP, our own Dynasty and DFS formats from the best minds in the industry, including myself and Russell. Sign up today at profootballfocus.com and start winning those leagues, people. That's why we do this, is for you. So without further ado, Russ, I think we will jump into I think a favorite pastime of a lot of fantasy footballers, and that's the mock draft. For Dynasty, it's a little different, as you and I both know, and for maybe some first-time listeners, it's not just about what your players can do this year. That's what redraft leagues are for. Meaning, if you want to draft LaShawn McCoy pretty high in your leagues in the first round because you think he's going to get 300 carries, you should do that in a redraft league, but stuff like that you got to consider for Dynasty because you're not just thinking about this year, but year 2, 3, 4, and in very special cases past that. So without further ado, Russ, I think we'll jump right in. We will do a 12-team standard scoring, offense only mock draft, Dynasty startup league, typical roster. So 1 quarterback, 2 running back, 2 receiver, tight end, and a flex. I think we'll change it up this time, Russ, and I will allow you to have the first overall pick in this Dynasty draft. So why don't you let us know who you picked, and then for the listeners, sort of go into why you picked that player and where you picked him. And obviously, the first pick, there's a lot of pressure, so go ahead.
The rookie hazing is over.
There you go, and believe me, don't fail because I guarantee you, if somebody's listening takes this player number 1 because of you, you will hear about it. So choose wisely, my friend.
All right. So standard is a little different than point per reception. If this was point per reception, I would take a few wide receivers over this guy. But with the first pick, I'll take Le'Veon Bell, Pittsburgh's running back. He's young and he's already shown elite ability. At some points, I'm talking about in preseason, you don't give up on your evaluation so quickly. I was not a fan of him coming back or coming out, and my mind has completely changed. He's used in both the passing and running game. He has a good quarterback and an elite receiver outside to take the pressure off. And, I mean, he's got a deep threat in Martavis Bryant, so there's even less pressure. I just love everything about his situation for the next 3 to 5 years.
Yeah, I don't know that anyone can fault you for that. I mean, he's the complete package. He can run, he can catch. He probably could throw if he had to. And, he's in a really good offense. And I think that's another understated trait for any good fantasy player, whether it's redraft or dynasty, is you want to get a guy that's going to put you in a good situation. And to be a bell cow back in a situation like that is ideal. And I don't think there's any question that that's the right move. And look, like I said, the hope is he can last for 5-6 years. But look, even if you get 3 to 4 elite years in a dynasty league, right. I think that's all you can hope for.
That's how I'm thinking about it.
So yeah, nope, can't fault you for that one. So with Bell off the board, see, and this is tough because I could go running back, but But you know what? I'm never in this position drafting this early in dynasty drafts. So you know what? I'm going to go for not only probably who I think will be an elite player, but probably just one of the most fun people to watch. No, I'm not talking about Rob Gronkowski.
Oh.
I'm talking about Dez Bryant, though.
Okay.
I am from that. Well, I live in Dallas. I'm not from Dallas. And believe me, Cowboys talk is pretty much all you get on sports radio around here. So, but nonetheless, that doesn't faze me to take Dez. He's 26. He's in a great offense, and he's an elite player. I don't know that. Look, you can make a case for one or two other receivers, like maybe Julio Jones, which I honestly wouldn't have a problem if he went number 2 either. But yeah, with this pick, I'm going to get who I think is the best player at this position and hope for the best. So, is that crazy, Russ, or is that way off?
I think when we talk about receivers, a lot of the research I've read said like touchdowns are random, but then you look at Dez Bryant and it's not random. Like this dude is good for 12 plus touchdowns every year. It's like guaranteed if he plays 16 games. So I think that gives him even more of a boost in any format, and especially in a standard format. So I like that. He would be my number 1 pick in a PPR, but like the running back rarity that we're dealing with right now makes Bell it's harder to find a running back right now.
Sure. Oh yeah, and believe me, as we get to round 2, that is definitely going to be a factor for the teams you and I have, and we will be making picks based on who we took in the first. But yeah, like you said, with Dez Bryant, just to give some perspective, every year he's averaged 90 catches, 1,300 yards, and at least 13 touchdowns.
Yeah,
for 3 years.
Right.
I mean, that's just uncanny. And he's 26. He's going to turn 27 this year. So, I'll be happy with that. So, anyway, third pick in this Dynasty startup mock draft, Russ. Who do you got?
The guy you mentioned. I'm going with Rob Gronkowski.
Very nice. I like it. We're getting crazy on this, Russ. I like
it. Obviously, he's on the Patriots. He's breaking pretty much every statistical tight end record there is, like in terms of where he is at his age. So like age 24, age 25, age 26. Like he's just each year he goes through and is breaking all the records. So it's amazing what he's done. The injury factor is a little bit of a worry, but not enough for me to like put him down in my rankings. He's just so much better than any other tight end that I like the position sort of advantage every week.
Yeah, and on the injury thing, I mean, look, he had a full season last year at full health. So, he's over a year removed from any significant injury. So, and look, you got to deal with that with every player, the risk of that. But, yeah, like you said, I mean, he's just so far ahead of everyone else at the position. And he's still young, too. That's the scary thing.
Right. Only 26. Yeah.
I mean, that's insane. And look, if that's, a position you could lock up for 5 years, like no doubt, then yeah, I can't fault you for that. So, no, that's a good pick. And look, you're going to have an advantage every single week over whoever you're playing. There's just no doubt about it, So, yeah, couldn't fault you for that pick, Russ. I like it. So, all right, fourth pick. Oof. See, and this
is where the long line of receivers.
Yeah, and I think, I don't hate to do this. Why would I hate to do this? I'm going to go Julio on this one.
Yeah.
Like I said before, I think him and Dez can make a claim for best overall receiver just in the NFL right now. Also, still only 26. Last year had a crazy season, 100 catches, 1,600 yards. And look, he's going to have Matt Ryan for a long time. And again, just physically and statistically, he's just far and away better than most of the other receivers. And at 26, from the Dynasty perspective, I think that could last a while. So I think if there's going to be any safe pick here, that's going to be it.
And again, for the listeners, if you're doing a startup, we've mentioned this before, it's like a golden age of talent right now. Mm-hmm. So I would embrace a little creativity in the first round. If you really like a guy out of these first 10 or so picks, like I'm fine with you guys, like you getting your guy, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like just because we picked it in this order and this is who we like, all these first 10 guys are studs. So
yeah, they're interchangeable. I mean, I think gone are the days of, like Adrian Peterson from a few years ago, who was just far away.
Yeah.
So, yeah. All right. So 5th overall pick, Russ. Who do you got?
Um, I'll have to go with Odell Beckham here.
All right.
The rookie year is basically unparalleled, other than Randy Moss.
Which, that's not a bad comp to beat.
I know it was only 12 games and he has the hamstring troubles, but I've just never seen in my dynasty years, I've never seen someone so dominant from such a young age. He's only 22 and he's in an offense where Eli loves to funnel targets to his number one target. So I just think this could be really good for a long time. And I don't see pretty much any risk with him. He's probably not going to ever be what he was like statistically per game like his rookie year, but I mean, I can pretty much lock him in for 1,200 to 1,300 yards this year, you know?
Yeah, I mean, look, he had 90 catches and 1,300 yards, like you said, in 12 games in 3/4 of a season. So yeah, no, I'm with you. And look, I think the understated thing is ever since the Giants brought in Ben McAdoo from Green Bay as their offensive coordinator, I mean, they just let it fly, man. And I think at the time, I think a lot of people questioned them taking Beckham that high. I mean, he was a top 15 pick, and the Giants certainly had a lot of holes to fill. But, yeah, I think in the end that was obviously the right call, and yeah, he's going to be good for many years to come. You do have the hamstring problem, but look, hasn't bothered him so far, and I don't think you can hold him back because of that. So,
right.
Yeah, couldn't fault you for that there. All right. Oof. So now, what do I do? You know? Well, I think I will go for – well, and this truly is, if there, okay, I take back Julio. If there's any safe pick, it's going to be this. I will go with Eddie Lacy here.
Okay.
Like you said, running backs are just so hard nowadays to gauge and to get a good one, especially in Dynasty. But again, you've got a young guy. He's in a good offense. Had 1,100 yards last year, 9 rushing touchdowns. But, I mean, at the same time, caught 40 balls for 400 yards. So it's not like he was one-dimensional. You know, he had some catches.
He was awesome on those receptions. So yeah. I wouldn't be surprised if the Packers were really excited about what they saw from him in the receiving game last year.
Yeah, and look, just throw it a little more. For all I care, go for it. So, yeah.
And in standard, you bump up Lacy quite a bit because of the safety of that situation. Mm-hmm. We've seen he's proven the talent. He's proven the fantasy production. He's pretty – I mean, he just like all these guys, they're playing the most violent game in the world. They're all going to have injury concerns. So if you're going to go down swinging, it might be with a guy that has Aaron Rodgers opening everything up for him, you know?
Right, and has no competition for carries. I don't think – James Starks is too big a threat. So
no, right. That's finally dead.
Yeah. All right. Number 7, Russ, you're up.
All right. I'll go with Antonio Brown here.
Okay.
I'll stack the Steelers with Le'Veon. He's still relatively young. He's 27. He's coming off basically like 2 top 5 wide receiver seasons. He's been the best receiver in the league the last 2 years. So barring injury, I don't see why he wouldn't do this for the next 3 to 5 years. I still think like a Dez or a Julio or Odell Beckham to some respect are more talented, but not really. Like They have more physical ability, but he makes up for it in tons of other ways. So, yeah, he's pretty safe there.
Yeah, I can't fault you for that. And I think he's going on like 2 years of at least 5 catches and 50 yards in a game. So
yeah, unbelievable.
That's your floor every single week. So
right.
Yeah, couldn't fault you for that one, Russ. So, all right. So you had Antonio Brown. Oof. So now up next, you know what? Again, this, darn my conservative play, but wait, do I dare do that? You know what?
He's going to do it.
I'll probably go Andrew Luck.
Okay.
Which, again, unconventional, I would say, at least from a lot of the mock drafts I have seen. But you know what? If I can lock up the top player at a position when he's 25, and the injury threat is probably the least among the players taken in the first round, and he's got his supporting cast set up for a decade, this will be the lamest pick ever because you'll never have to worry about it again. So,
I mean, and the new thing here is that he is loaded with talent. Like the Colts have so much talent on that offense now.
And Philip Dorsett somehow found a way to get attention. So with that, along with Johnson and T.Y. Hilton now locked up, I'm excited. So, like I said, you could go. There's probably some other guys that maybe have a higher ceiling on a per season basis, but man, Luck, you're getting your quarterback for like 10 years, and that's sort of the point of Dynasty. So, anyway, all right. 9th pick, Russ. Who do you got?
All right. So this is going to be my first sort of gamble-ish pick.
There we go. Wait, let me guess.
Go ahead.
Mike Evans.
Yeah, bingo. Again, these rookie years are so not normal. What him and Odell Beckham did, like for Evans to catch 12 touchdowns his rookie year, I just can't deny that ceiling, and they got the number 1 overall pick there. So if Jameis can be an above-average quarterback long-term, I think you're looking at a major ceiling for Evans. So,
yeah, I think. Look, at the very least, he's going to be Vincent Jackson.
Right, exactly.
He had 70 catches, but still somehow was able to get to 1,000 yards and double-digit touchdowns. So, and that was with the stellar quarterback play of Josh McCown and Mike Glennon. So we can only imagine what he'll do with Jameis. And look, like you said, he's only 21. He'll be 22 this season. So, that's going to be a guy along with Beckham you can hold on to for a few more years than Dez and Julio for sure.
A little note, and this is obviously a dynasty draft. For this year, I think he could end up sort of around the same where he got his rookie year, sort of that, maybe even a little less touchdowns, so like 1,000 yards and 10 touchdowns. But if you're getting that production from a 20-year-old player or 21-year-old player, then that's fine, and you can be willing to wait a year for elite production the next year,
Yeah, I don't know about you, but of all of these sort of younger receivers, I mean, he's got to have the highest ceiling.
Yeah.
I mean, even more so than Beckham, I would argue.
I'm not as high on him as some people, like you said, think he's like the number 2 overall dynasty player.
Wait, Beckham or Evans?
Evans.
Oh, okay.
Some people are really high on him,
right.
Which I'm not there, but I'm also sort of stepping back and saying, I'm not going to say they're wrong either.
Right.
He's a first round pick.
I think it just depends on the mood you're in for how high he goes.
Right.
So. All right. So that was number 9. So number 10. Oof. And this is thinning out quickly, Russ. But that's okay. And there's a lot of good options there, but I will probably go with. I'll go with the Marys, I think, here.
Okay.
I feel pretty safe with that. He obviously had a stellar season last year, 111 catches, 1,600 yards. But look, he was doing things even, when Tim Tebow was the quarterback. It's not like it's all a product of Peyton Manning. So, and look, he's only 27. He'll be 28 at the end of this year. He can do the things that Julio and Dez Bryant can do. Situation may not be quite as ideal, but he's around the same age. He's got the same, I think, talent level. And, I think he can do some of those same things for at least a couple years. Now, this season will really be the make or break year because they do have, obviously, Gary Kubiak coming in who is predominantly a run-first guy. But, hey, we'll see what happens. But at the very least, look, he's an elite talent. I can't knock that. So if he's your wide receiver 1 in a dynasty at this pick, I can't fault you for that.
Yeah, and as I said, I probably have him on the lower end of these elite receivers, but he's still in there,
Right.
And his production has been better the last 3 years than I think pretty much anyone other than Antonio Brown. I actually think he has more production the last 3 years. So I would pencil him in for basically at least 1,400 yards this year. And I mean, I'm not as worried about post-Peyton with him as others are. I think he has a good enough talent on his own to sort of be fantasy relevant regardless of who's throwing in the ball. So
yeah, I think so. So, all right, 11th pick, Russ. Who do you got?
All right. Well, Calvin Johnson.
There we go.
He's 29.
I like it.
He's almost going to be infamously 30, and he'll be the new villain of Dynasty leagues. Everyone will want to fade him then. But I just think when there's generational talents, I tend to lean on this. I tend to bet on them. So even if he is 30, I think he could have 3 to 4 elite years left in him. When you look at sort of the guys from last generation, Randy Moss, Terrell Owens, sort of Jerry Rice, all those types of guys, they performed well deep into their 30s. So if this was a normal wide receiver, I would understand fading at 30. But I just think he's one of the best ever. And I think those guys can last a lot longer than just the regular sort of good to really good players.
Yeah, and look, even like you said, even on a quote down year last year, he had 70 catches for 1,000 yards and 8 touchdowns. So
and he was like a decoy for a few games.
Yeah, I mean that was with 128 targets. He hadn't had that low of targets, honestly, in literally like 5 or 6 years. So
right.
Yeah, even as a decoy, I think he's still pretty effective. So.
And I think I'm one of the people that's highest on him. So in like a real dynasty draft startup, you'd probably be able to get him maybe mid to early second round.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. I'd agree with that.
He's one of the better values for me this year.
Yeah, I can go with that. All right. So 12th pick, and then what we'll do, Russ, is we'll essentially keep the same team in the second round. Okay, so for example, I'll make 2 picks here, which, I'll be essentially the team 12, and then you'll pick, second in the second round, but as if you had Calvin Johnson with your first pick. Does that make sense?
Sure.
All right, so at the turn, and I love this combination, I will go Aaron Rodgers first, and then I will go Alshon Jeffrey as my receiver. So, and we can debate this, but I really think having a pick at the turn in a draft like this is probably a little better than at the top. What do you think?
Oh, say that again.
Having your pick at the turn here, assuming it's a snake draft in a dynasty startup, is, to me, I don't know. I feel a little better about that spot than picking maybe 1 or 2 overall. Is that crazy,
Yes.
or what do you think?
Absolutely, because I'd say that first tier is around 10 or 11 players if you include Andrew Luck. And then there's another really nice tier from like 11 to like 15 or 16 where you're still getting really good players with elite potential. So, yeah.
So yeah, that's not a bad foundation, Rodgers and Alshon Jeffrey. All right. And we will speed this thing up, Russ, because as much as we would love to go all day, we just cannot. So,
okay.
Second pick in the second round, you previously took Calvin Johnson. Who do you have at 14 overall?
AJ Green, Cincinnati. He was another one who came off an injury sort of filled season, and I expect him to do well and rebound this year.
Yeah, and again, even in a quote down year, he had 1,000 yards. And I don't know about you, man, but I'm just waiting for the Andy Dalton shoe to drop in Cincinnati and for them to upgrade that position. I don't know what they'll do, but hey, even with Andy Dalton, he's been an elite option.
Yeah, exactly.
I couldn't fault you for that one. So, all right, so 15th overall, third in the second round. The previous pick at this spot was Demaryius Thomas. So I think I will go another old guy. I will go Jamaal Charles here. sort of cover my two core positions. 28, which, yes, is very nerve-wracking. But, look, even last year had another 1,000-yard rushing season, had 40 catches if you're in a PPR league, and 14 total touchdowns. I would argue his supporting cast is probably a little better this year, right?
Yeah, definitely.
You know, I mean, you've got Macklin, who can act as a bit of a decoy out wide and deep. Hopefully they do more for Travis Kelce and develop him a little more. But at the very least, I think they could make Charles a little more effective. And look, Charles literally averages 5 yards a carry like clockwork. Like, that's automatic with him.
And I think people give Alex Smith a pretty hard time, and I guess deservedly so since he lost that playoff game. But he's actually not a terrible quarterback. So, I mean, they got some deep weapons now. I wouldn't be surprised if he threw deep a little more this year. So that might open things up for Charles. Yeah,
we will see. So, all right. So, fourth pick in the second round, 16th overall. You drafted Mike Evans at this spot, Russ. Who do you got?
I will take Todd Gurley.
There we go. Wow, that is the super young team.
I think he's a potentially generational talent and willing to risk that the ACL stuff isn't going to bother him.
Yeah, and look, like you and I have touched on before with Dynasty, you can't – I mean, yes, it's, you know, an injury to watch, but it's definitely not something that should affect his draft position in Dynasty drafts. And look, in a startup, if you can pair Gurley with Mike Evans, you have guys that are under 22 years old right now. I mean, that's pretty young and pretty good. So, yeah, I couldn't fault you for that one. That's a good stack there. So, all righty, fifth pick in the second round, 17th overall. This pick previously had Andrew Luck, so it's got some flexibility there. I will go, oh, man. And I will say this is not a pick I usually make, but I like the possibilities. I will go Randall Cobb here, receiver for Green Bay. You know, he really broke out last year. There was a lot of talk about his potential, never quite did it, got injured. But then last year, finally, you know, got 90 catches, 1,300 yards, 12 touchdowns. And, you know, he's not even 25 yet, and he's on a good offense. And, you know, I think here in the next year or two, he could be the primary target. I think Jordy has enjoyed a lot of that attention. But, look, Jordy's hips are getting bad, and he's getting older, and you still got Randall Cobb there just waiting in the wings. So I think, you know, if you paired him with a quarterback in a dynasty league, an elite quarterback like this, you've got a very high ceiling there. And even better if you're in a PPR league. So
definitely.
Yeah. So I would go Cobb there. You know, I don't know. Some people have Cobb in the first round of a dynasty startup. Russ, where do you have him?
I have him right around that early second round. So I'd say you got a pretty good value here.
Okay. All right. Sixth pick in the second round, 18th overall. This team started off with Antonio Brown. So, Russ, do your worst.
This is where it starts to get tough for me.
It gets dicey.
I've really liked all those picks up until now, and I think you're starting to slide back a little bit in terms of pure talent-wise for age. I'll go with DeAndre Hopkins.
Okay.
I don't like the situation right now, but I'm hoping Bill O'Brien can get a quarterback who's relevant in there. Hopkins has pretty much seen a nice trajectory his first 2 years, from 800 to 1,200 yards. I expect him to be around something like that this year too. So I like him at that spot.
Yeah, and let's forget, even with the shoddy quarterback play this year, he could literally get 200 targets.
Yeah, exactly.
If he converts half of them, then you're good. All right, so 19th pick, 7th in the second round. This pick previously had Eddie Lacy. So, you know, you could argue that running back is sort of taken care of for a while anyway. Man, there's oof. And yeah, like you said, this is where it starts getting really dicey. But I'm gonna get a little crazy, Russ. Okay. I'll give you one guess as to what I do here.
Amari Cooper?
No, not a bad pick. I will go, even though I've got Eddie Lacy, I will go Jeremy Hill at this spot.
Mm-hmm.
I will admit, I was not a Jeremy Hill fan last year, heading into the season, even halfway during the season. But holy crap! I mean, that second half of the season was unreal. Literally led the league the last 8 games, led the league in rushing and yards per carry. So it wasn't just about volume, and it wasn't just about a per play effectiveness. It was the whole package.
There you go.
And look, he's got all the same personnel coming back. He's only 22. I just really, again, I've come full circle on him. And, even though for this particular team you've got a running back, look, I think if you can get 2 guys that can punch in double-digit touchdowns every year for a while,
right,
that's pretty good. And look, like we've covered before, receivers so deep that I think you could still get a good option in your 3rd and 4th round here. So
that's the big thing there. 10 plus touchdowns for a running back, and you're really happy, in a standard league. So
right.
Yeah, I like that pick there.
All righty. So 8th pick in the second, 20th overall. 1st round, this team took Odell Beckham at receiver. You are on the clock.
All right. Well, I'm going to go with the man whose hips don't lie, Jordy Nelson.
There you go.
He is 30. Definitely on the downside. Again, he's not a Calvin Johnson-like talent, but I do still think he's got a few years left. If he gives you 2 to 3 really good sort of mid to high wide receiver 1 numbers, you're happy with that pick.
Yeah, and look, let's not forget, he's in one of the top offenses in the league. You can't you can't get rid of that. So I can't fault you for that, especially at that spot. You pair him with a Beckham, and you pretty much have elite wide receiver insurance going. So, all right. So 9th pick in the 2nd round. This would be 21st overall, and in the last round, this pick got Julio Jones at receiver. So, man. See, and this is where you know what I'm talking about. This is where it gets dicey, and I think more importantly, this really is where you can, I think, get a feel for where your fellow Dynasty league mates, this is what their strategy is.
Mm-hmm.
So you can definitely see what they're thinking. So at this pick, previous team had Julio. I think at this pick, I will go. Oh, man, this is not good. I don't even know, man. This is tough. Okay, so you got Julio there. You know what? This isn't going to be a popular pick, but I will probably go LaShawn McCoy at this pick. As you said, it's a standard league, so you mitigate some of that.
Yeah.
He is 27, so believe me, as far as running backs go, he is getting up there. But look, still had 1,300 yards last year. Certainly not, I think, as effective on a per-play basis as he used to be. But look, I think for the next 2 or 3 years, Rex is just going to run him into the ground. So, to get him in the 2nd round and pair him with a guy like Julio, I think that sort of is your safety net. So.
Right, and again, all these awesome players are sort of pushing these running backs you might have had to take in the first a few years ago. So it's not as bad of a risk here,
Well, yeah, and look, if he's your first pick in Dynasty, I would advise against that. But yeah, if he's second round, yeah, I can live with that. So, all right, Russ. So 10th pick in the 2nd round, 22nd overall, and the 1st round for this team saw Rob Gronkowski taken. So pretty much every position is your oyster, Russ.
All right, I'm going to go with T.Y. Hilton.
Okay.
I wasn't as high on him, but then he signed that contract. And anyone linked to Luck for the next 3 to 4 years, I'm in on. He had 1,300 yards last year. I eventually see him and Dorsett sort of working with each other on the outside, but I see 12 to 1,300 yards the next few years at least. So
Yeah, I'd say that's correct. And there's some question on the volume. Like he won't see as many looks as he has. With guys like Dorsett. But I honestly think you're probably looking at guys like Fleener losing targets. And look, Andre Johnson won't be around forever. And yeah, I think Ty has firmly established himself as Luck's favorite target there. And like you said, if you can get 12 to 1,300 yards like automatically every year from your receiver,
right.
I'm good with that. And especially if you can pair him with a guy like Gronkowski, then even better. So, all right, very good. All right, so the 11th pick in the second round, 23rd overall, and my last pick of this Dynasty Startup mock draft. Last round started off with Dez Bryant, so oh man. I'm debating between somebody like Sammy.
Yeah.
But I think I will go running back, and I will go on the running back that kicked us off this evening, and Mr. Melvin Gordon. Again, I go back to Dez Bryant as sort of your insurance there, meaning I think you can roll the dice a little bit on this second pick. So, and look, I think Gordon is automatically a first and second down back for the next 5 years at least. And look, he's on a decent to good offense. It's not like he's in Buffalo for my last pick. So, so I think with Gordon, you're looking at an easy 1,000 yards, 10 touchdowns a season. And look, the guy's young. He's 22. So,
yeah,
I think you've got and you've got him in his prime. So between that and having Dez Bryant sort of shoulder the load there, I'm okay with that. So
I fully endorse that pick.
All right. So last pick in the second round, Russ, 24th overall. This team took Le'Veon Bell first overall. So do your worst. Pair him with fill in the blank.
All right. I'll go with a youngin for Amari Cooper.
There we go. That's good. That's good.
I mean, Oakland's an all right situation for him. It's not great, but I do like the talent, and I think that late, if you can get a guy like him, I think he'll produce right away. So he might even be helpful year one.
I think so. I've come around on Cooper. I mean, in just the short time he was drafted, when I thought, oh God, that is the worst situation possible he could go to. And I still don't like it, but I don't think it's as bad. And everything I have read and seen indicates that he might be quarterback proof, a la AJ Green. Where he's still going to produce despite the talent around him. So.
Right. I think in a few years we might look at this like the Houston situation with DeAndre Hopkins, but I mean, I don't know. I still think he'll be able to produce if there's a bad quarterback there.
I think so, and look, I think there's some potential in Oakland. Derek Carr aside, excuse me. You've got Latavius Murray there. You've got Michael Rivera and Clive Wofford there. Again, I think not great talents around him, but I think it's something that could help deflect some of the attention. And like I said, I think Cooper's a guy that can be situation proof eventually.
I won't overreact to preseason, but Michael Crabtree looked spry.
Oh, don't. You take him at a risk, okay? If you want to take him in like the third round of this thing, you go right ahead. Look, for Cooper Dynasty owners, I think you do hope Crabtree has a bit of a bounce back year.
Yeah.
Take some of that attention away, but nonetheless, yeah, I like Cooper, and I think that could be good. So, all right, Russ. Well, we got through a lot of information tonight, so hopefully everyone stuck around. We might pick this up next week, but until then, be sure to go to ProFootballFocus.com. Read articles from, as I said before, the great minds such as Russ and myself, along with a lot of other writers. And until then, we will see you next time.